Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I need to have you answer for me an ethical dilemma. I want you to imagine, I'm good, Bernie, thank you. I want you to imagine that you are counseling a friend. The friend comes to you and says, you know, I really messed up. I was working the register the other day at the shop, and while the boss was out, you know, we've been having a pretty good day, and I was a little low on funds for groceries, what with inflation and all. So I slipped a 20 out of the till into my pocket. I'm feeling a little bad about it though. What do you think I should do? It's so easy to, yes.
I mean, the correct ethical question would be like, you know, making it right. But I would just slip another 20 back in because I don't want to lose my job.
All right, so we're moving into a double decision fork, right?
What if they already spent it, they don't have $20?
Well, if you're trying to make it right and you're feeling bad about it, there's no way to make it better other than just confession, which again is more likely to make you lose your job, which you clearly need if you're slipping 20.
There's going to be a very long conversation on the ride home, but let me make sure that everyone else is hearing the two different parts of this. One is, look, if you really want to make it right, you're going to have to give the money back. That seems to be ground zero for making it right. If you can't make it right, well, then you can't make it right. And, you know, if you needed 20 to pay for groceries in the first place, maybe you're not going to be able to get another 20 out of nowhere to take care of the 20 that you just took, and then have more money left over for your groceries on top of that. It is indeed a sticky situation. But on the other hand, yes?
Before you admit to taking the money, don't you have to find out what the potential penalties are?
Before you admit to taking the money, don't you have to find out the additional penalties? Actually,
That's
in
that's not ethics though, that's protecting your job. If
no,
you're-
he means Jewishly.
Oh,
Right, because Jewishly, different types of theft will result in different multiples of what was taken being returned to the victim.
No,
If you are doing it of your own free will before you have been caught and just want to make it right, usually you can just return that which was taken. So that's the usual baseline, and we're not going to get more complicated for tonight because trust me, I'm about to make this more complicated than we already are.
I meant to say if you're outside of, not in Jewish law, but in a different country, so sometimes the laws are too strict.
Okay, so if you're outside of the Jewish law and you're dealing with American law, then indeed you may need to consider in some parts of the world, you might be severely punished for taking that 20 by much more extreme measures than just losing your job. Which is why, I will pounce on that segue while I have the floor, you may very well consider the third option, which has not been discussed right now, which is, congratulations, you're now a thief. Embrace your new career. Right? I mean, look, you've already taken 20 bucks. We already know that your ethics are shot because you wouldn't have taken 20 bucks if you were a good person to begin with. So just carry on. I mean, be cautious. Don't get caught. Don't be stupid. But if you've already tarnished yourself by having stolen 20 bucks and you already know you're in a situation where that is likely to be a helpful option in the future, then why bother trying to make it right? You don't want to risk your job, you won't be able to pay for things if you put the money back in the first place, and the punishment might be too severe in any case.
But if
Just,
you till is short $20 every time you leave work for the day, you're gonna get caught anyway.
oh, I'm not saying you don't have to be sneaky. And I'm not saying you shouldn't sneak out the $20 when someone else is on the register and get them in trouble.
You're gonna get terminated if you do it a certain amount of times. It doesn't matter if you took it or if it shrink from someone else getting paid back to exchange or anything.
there's also a big leap from I'm hungry and need $20 to career thief.
Not according to Javert. I mean,
Yes, in Les Miserables, Javert is very black and white, and yes, steal a loaf of bread, steal the entire mint of France, it's the same crime. In for a penny, in for a pound, although that's a British reference, not quite in keeping with France. So most of you, I'm looking at your faces, seem a little unsettled by the idea that the rabbi is recommending a career in robbery and thievery. But the thing is, most of us find this, hopefully, a little laughable, that morally, most people would not suggest that just because you had messed up once with this $20 temptation, need, that you should just give up on trying to avoid theft in the future. Most of us recognize that one mistake should not define you. One mistake does not become who you are, that there are ways to fix it, even if it, because of severe penalties or because of fear of losing the job, there are ways to begin to try and mend this and to prevent yourself from falling down that path again. If it is so obvious, though, with regards to this missing 20, why do people have so much trouble with this same concept over a cheeseburger? That is to say, this is the Torah portion where we are reviewing the laws of kashrut, of keeping kosher. And I have come across people again and again and again, myself included when I was in my mid-teens, that was of the opinion that if you're not going to do it right, don't do it at all. Right? If you're not going to actually keep all of the rules of kashrut, if you're not having two sets of dishes, if you're not making sure that the animal was slaughtered according to Jewish law, if you're not making sure that everything you eat is from an animal that is even kosher in the first place, if you're not being so particular about the mixing of meat and milk, if you're not going to follow all of the rules, then why follow any of the rules? Right? Everything goes, pull up to the buffet line, and whatever's in the pot, shovel it into your mouth and don't ask questions, because honestly, you're not really going to observe kashrut, so why bother doing any of it? It doesn't sound too unreasonable in that context, does it? And yet, when we were talking about the money from the cash register, all of us recognized, oh no, that's just a simple mistake, it's one thing, you can fix that, you can go back to making it right, you can work out this, act, and the other. But when it comes to kashrut, it's a very common slip of the mind to believe that this is a singular mitzvah that has to be adhered to 100% of the time, and if it's not being adhered to 100% of the time, what kind of hypocrite are you for trying to adhere to it 20% of the time, 30% of the time, 50, 60, 70, anything less than 100 seems pointless. Not a productive attitude.
I think there's a difference in the perceived consequences. So like, when the Torah says like, if you sin or whatever, it'll be like cut off from Hashem, that there's like, it's like spiritually you're cut off, but like, you're not gonna like materially lose anything, like tangibly in this world, sort of.
No one's showing up with the handcuffs because of the double bacon cheeseburger.
Basically, but it's also like, because if you're growing up secular and that's like what you would normally curve to, and then there's that slope, so like it's just as easy not to do it. So it's like, well, I already messed up this one thing, let me just continue doing the way I've been doing it, because what's the difference?
Well, what's the difference? And it's the key phrase that you have in there is the one that I'm trying to trace through our psychological permutations. If I've already messed up, because as you voiced there perfectly, most of us, and again, I'm going back on reflections of my own life. I did not grow up keeping kosher. It was something I came to begin to do in my late teens. But there is this mental process of knowing that, well, you know, the Torah says I'm not supposed to eat X, Y, and Z. But, you know, it's something I've already done. So I've already messed up. I guess I'll just keep eating X, Y, and Z. And it's that I've messed up, so I'll continue. That seems to apply with some mitzvot, but not others. If you say to yourself, wow, I lost my temper once, and I punched a guy outside a bar, you wouldn't say, I've messed up once, I'm just going to start punching everyone. All of us would laugh and say, no, of course not. That would be ridiculous. I've stolen once, I've already messed up, I guess I'll continue stealing. Again, we wouldn't do the same. And yet, when it comes to kashrut, to a different degree, the observance of Shabbat, to the practice of study, to many other mitzvot, but kashrut really does stand out. We often feel that once we have messed up, that we might as well continue messing up. And that is not what Torah wants us to think. It's unfortunately what sometimes is projected about kashrut, even from people with good intentions. But that's not what the Torah tells us. The Torah gives us lists of commandments, not a single command to keep kashrut. And it tells us that this is what you'll do when you eat. And I've got news for you. You don't eat only once in your life. You have, hopefully, depending upon how much money you have to pay for groceries, many opportunities to eat. And each opportunity is another opportunity for kashrut. And each ingredient that you are choosing to make part of your food is an opportunity for kashrut. That is to say, if you eat one element that is not kosher, added shrimp for some reason into your salad, but the rest of it was kosher, recognize that you were only one shrimp away from having a perfectly kosher meal. Not, I am 100% an unrepentant sinner who is never going to try to remove that shrimp from that particular dish. Every time you are driving down the road and you see roadkill and you keep going rather than scooping it up for lunch, you are already keeping kashrut. That is one of the major things the Torah tells us. You're not allowed to eat an animal that wasn't properly killed. Roadkill was not properly killed. And you already instinctually avoid that. Yashikoach, you are already keeping part of that aspect. Every time you see one of those large, juicy, plump spiders going up the wall, and you elect not to eat it, you are already keeping kashrut. Every time you decide not to kill the squirrels that are raiding the bird feeder and eat them, you are keeping kashrut, whether you realize it or not. Most of us in our day-to-day life are only a few decisions away from keeping kashrut perfectly. And yet most of us in our day-to-day life, if we have not yet embraced the spirit of kashrut, I will definitely need that later. Most of us, if we have not yet definitely embraced the spirit of kashrut, feel as though we are very far from being good on this mitzvah. And I want you to recognize how close you are. I want you to recognize how powerful kashrut is and how many opportunities you have to make it a spiritual part of your life. That little brief pause when you are purchasing something in the grocery store, when you are standing in line and trying to order and making a decision between the double bacon cheeseburger or just the cheeseburger or just the burger or maybe a salad, that each one of those choices can bring you just that little bit extra closer. And it makes you have that moment of reflection and that moment of spirit even in the most mundane of our tasks.
So Rabbi, I've read that one of the purposes of eating or keeping kashrut is that it's to help you to put your Yetzer Hara in the appropriate place. So isn't it sort of like sort of antithetical to the idea of kashrut to even think very negatively of yourself? Because if you think so negatively of yourself, you're actually more apt to do more misdeeds. You're actually kind of fueling the Yetzer Hara. So is it sort of like antithetical?
So the Yetzer Hara, the so-called evil inclination, is usually translated in English, are appetites, which can, left unchecked, lead us into so much trouble. Much more about that tomorrow during the sermon. Indeed, would like us to be to down on ourselves, to believe that we are incapable, that we are failures, that we are frauds, hypocrites, and therefore do whatever you feel like. And that is a tempting but very unhealthy attitude. Having appetites is fine. I had a lovely dinner tonight and I ate it with much appetite. But thanks to a number of cumulative choices, it was able to be a kosher dinner. And that is something that is within the reach of all of us at least once, and then maybe twice, and then maybe 3 times. Each time is its own time. And that is true not just for kashrut, but for all of our lives. Each mitzvah, each opportunity to choose between right and not so right is its own unique opportunity. Allow yourself to be in that moment free, not burdened by past choices, not burdened by future fears of if I do what's right today, I might have to do what's right tomorrow, but do what is right for that moment. And cumulatively, you will see the transformation. Shabbat Shalom.